So you all please join me in Gassho. Repeat the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats. Good morning, everyone. That was nice and energetic. Ooh. Is it the warm weather that you're all feeling energized? Well, of course, let me get this out of the way first by wishing all the mothers in the congregation today a very happy Mother's Day. And since we're actually recording live, happy Mother's Day, Mom, if you're watching. No, actually, in all seriousness, today my mother is attending the Palo Alto Buddhist temple service, watching my uncle today, my father's brother, who is the minister of the Palo Alto Buddhist temple, who is, of course, Reverend Dean Koyama, who you will all be seeing in September. Mother's Day is a very important holiday, I think, for us, or an observance that should always be recognized every year without fail. Whether that be giving your mother a card, flowers, a present, or a hug and a thank you, it is, I think, one of the most important times that we should observe as Buddhists. Because, as we all know, in Buddhism, mothers are very, very, very important. Why is this? Well, look at the pictures on the side here, the story of the Buddha. The first picture, as you can clearly see, Siddhartha is not inside that picture. It is Queen Maya. She is pivotal to the story of the Buddha. Without Queen Maya, Siddhartha would not have become born into this world. With all of us, right? Without our mothers, we would not be born into this world. And I personally love the stories of the mothers the various mothers in Buddhism. Some of them are kind of sad, like the story of the mustard seed, the Kisagotami story, right? There's that story. But there's actually another mother story in Buddhism that I particularly enjoy, and that is the story of Master Genshin. Now, for those of you who do not know, Master Genshin is actually depicted on the scroll here. He is one of the 7 masters. And I actually have Bishop Harada to thank for this story, because he's the one who introduced it to me. And I actually, when I heard this story, I couldn't help but laugh and just remark to myself, this is exactly something my mother would say. But let me actually tell you the story. So Master Genshin is one of the 7 masters and was a very accomplished monk. He probably mastered all of the sutras, memorizing them, and of course did all of the hard practices on Mount Hiei, just like Master Shinran did, right? Master Shinran did 20 years of hard practice, and Master Genshin was no different. So Master Genshin started to get quite a reputation of being a very accomplished priest. And in fact, he was so accomplished, the emperor, that's like being invited by the president of the United States, right? Like if I got invited by President Joe Biden, what an ego boost that would have been, right? But the emperor invited Master Genshin to his royal palace, and Master Genshin went to go visit the emperor, right? And the emperor wanted a lecture on Buddhism, and Master Genshin gave him this beautiful dialogue and this wonderful teaching, and talked about probably these great fundamentals of Buddhist lore and mythology. The emperor was so impressed by Master Genshin that he gifted him beautiful silk. Now, silk, remember, is one of those real high-class quality gifts that you could ever give a person, right? In fact, actually, some of the priests started the high-ranking priests in Japan, when they would receive silk from the emperor or from imperial family, they would actually make beautiful robes out of these silk pieces, right? In fact, I'm actually you don't see me you see me in a black robe today, but next weekend you'll get to see me in a blue one because they just arrived from Japan. Anyways, Master Genshin was feeling pretty good about himself, right? He goes, man, I just got invited by the emperor. I got all these beautiful gifts. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send my mother. I can never forget the wonderfulness of my mother, right? I can't forget the wonderfulness of my mother, and I'm going to impress my mother by sending her some of this silk cloth. She's going to be so proud of me, right? And so Master Genshin sends these cloths, these silk cloths to his mother, right? And then when the time came, when he replied back, he got the, apparently the legend is he received the silk back from his mother, and with a letter. Now, of course, he was expecting a letter saying something like, "Oh, Genshin, I am so proud of you. I couldn't have a better son. Oh, wonderful son! What a wonderful son! I'm the proudest mother. Or I have a son of accomplishment." He was probably expecting this kind of a letter, right? Instead, the note read, "I did not send you to Mount Hiei so you could receive fame and fortune." Ooh. Master Genshin at first was shocked. He was shocked by this message. This is my mother. Shouldn't she be proud of me? Shouldn't she be, giving me praise and all of these things, right? Instead, she, gave back kind of this harsh criticism, right? Like, you're kind of getting an ego. You got to tone it down a little bit. But then after some deep contemplation, Master Genshin realized his mother had given him one of the greatest gifts of all, and that was helping him to keep his ego in check. So when Master Genshin returned to his quarters, he actually painted the Chinese characters on his wall, fame and fortune, right? And people were kind of, sometimes when you put things on a wall, right, like you put those feel-good sayings on the wall, right? Like, tomorrow is another day, or some feel-good statements, right? Because you need to feel good, right, when you come home. But for Master Genshin, on his wall, he wrote fame and fortune. So when another priest went in and looked at it, and he kind of was like, why did you write that on the wall? Aren't we supposed to be Buddhist? Aren't we supposed to, not want fame and fortune? And Genshin said, no, you don't understand. Those two things, fame and fortune, those are my weaknesses, right? Those are my deepest desires. Those are my imperfections, my desire for fame and fortune. And thanks to my mother, I now know what my deepest weaknesses are. Mothers always seem to have a knack for, seeing through things and, of course, becoming to know their children through and through. My mother could always tell when I was not telling the full truth. My mother could always tell when I wasn't giving her the full story of what happened when something did happen. My mother was very devoted to my upbringing as well, as I'm certain all of your mothers were. And even if, again, and I realize as well, I am speaking from a position of privilege. Not everybody in the world is lucky enough to have, their actual mother in their life. So I acknowledge that I am speaking from a position of privilege, and I am not speaking with this, notion that, oh, everybody has the same kind of mother that I do, right? But if you do have a mother in your life or a mother figure in your life who really genuinely cares for you, that care is genuinely felt. Sometimes, even if your mother is scolding you, right? My mother, there's no one I fear more than my mother, when she gets mad at me. Right, my mother has a way of making me, I don't know, and I'm twice her size too, and she still has a way of shrinking me down to this little size, just from one look or just from one tone of her voice. She's able to cut me off of my high horse. And again, this feeling of genuine love and care is felt, and it is cherished. And later on, when especially for the Dharma school students, when you start to grow up a little bit more, there is a connection to this love, right, back to Amida Buddha. This unstoppable, unfathomable love that a mother has for her child. This mother, this love continues on and on and on and doesn't stop. One day, you as Dharma school students will probably grow up, move out of the house, go to college, probably move states, right? And I guarantee you, one of the first things that you will miss is your mother. When I went off to college, I was very happy to get out of the house. I was very happy to detach from the rules and the regulations that my parents enforced upon me. But it wasn't much longer into that time when I was on my own, when I started to miss the comforts of home. And of course, my father had a real big part in this as well, but I will save that for Father's Day next month. But my mother is definitely part of that comfort as well. My mother and father, woke me up every morning, made sure I got to school. They were very involved. Well, sometimes to the point of annoying, right? And sometimes you get irritated with your mother. Sometimes moms get irritated with you, and for very good reasons. But this is, I believe, how the Dharma works, right? Your mother is there to tell you when something is wrong, and it's not always a convenient time. It's not supposed to be. Your mother is there to care and comfort for you. And of course, that doesn't always mean hug and love and words of praise. Sometimes it's writing a harsh letter saying, I did not send you to Mount Hiei to receive fame and fortune. Our mothers are our greatest teachers, I think. Even Shakyamuni Buddha, in his time, recognized the importance of mothers and the relationships they have with their children and with the rest of the world. I wish to wish all of the mothers present and beyond a happy Mother's Day. I don't want to sound like a nagging parent myself, for I am not blessed with a child yet. But I do hope, and I am starting to realize and understand and appreciate the sacrifices and the hard work and the blood, sweat, and tears, frankly, that mothers go through for their children. And it's very, very easy to take mothers for granted as well. We always expect our mothers to be there. We always expect our mothers to be present, to be home when we get home. That comfort is something we become very, very attached to and very used to. But I encourage all of you Dharma school students, and this includes myself, not to take that love for granted, not to take that care for granted. I am glad we have Mother's Day and other holidays, right? But I'm glad we have Mother's Day because it gives us an opportunity to really thank our mothers and to think about how much they love us. This kind of love is part of the Dharma. This kind of love shows, I think, comes pretty close to Amida Buddha's love for us, the constant caring, the wisdom and compassion that they give us day in and day out. So I would really like us all to, if you are not able to be with your mother today, please go and thank your mother in whatever form that is, right? Whether that be a letter, a visit, or a telephone call, a Zoom call. Please do your best to call your mother and tell her thank you. Thank you from the bottom of your hearts for the love and care that she has shown you. For we as Buddhists must once again remember that our top message, one of our biggest messages is is interdependence. Without the love and care of others, we could not exist. Without the love and care of our mothers, we could not be here today. Thank you all very much for attending today's Mother's Day service here at the Tacoma Buddhist Temple. In closing, will you please join me in Gassho? Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats. Will you all please join me in Gassho? Great Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara, the world savior who appeared as Prince Shotoku, is like a father never leaving us and like a mother, always watching over us. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandat, namandat, namandat. Good morning again, everyone. And thank you again, and happy Mother's Day again to all the mothers in the congregation and watching today. Well, today we chanted Shoshi Nembutsuge, and that was a little bit of a long chant, but thank you all very much for sticking with me and chanting that. The reason we chanted that today, actually, is because today, May 14th, is also a special day where we commemorate the passing of our 8th Monshu, Renyo Shonin. I can't remember off of the top of my head if May 14th is the lunar or the Gregorian calendar, because as you all know, we are Nishi Honganji, so if we do something on the Gregorian calendar, Higashi observes it on the lunar calendar, and vice versa. So that's why when we celebrate Hoonko, we do it on January 16th, which is on the Gregorian calendar, whereas Higashi Honganji does it on November 28th, which is the lunar calendar, just to confuse you a little bit. Today, once again, like the theme for our Dharma talk is mothers again. So once again, we are celebrating Mother's Day. And interestingly enough, this opening gosandai, or quote, comes from Shinran Shonin's hymns or wasan in praise of Prince Shotoku. Okay, so Prince Shotoku is depicted here on this scroll, and he is a very important figure in our school of Jodo Shinshu. Because the legend is that when Shinran was doing his 100-day meditation retreat, Prince Shotoku appeared to him in an image in like the fireplace, actually, and spoke to him. So Shinran Shonin thought of Prince Shotoku as kind of this, Avaluki as an embodiment of Avalokiteshvara, or Kannon Bosatsu, who many of you know as Guan Yin, the Chinese bodhisattva of mercy, right, or compassion. And oftentimes, Guan Yin, or Kannon, or Avalokiteshvara, is depicted as this loving woman who is like supposed to sort of represent a mother figure, because Avalokiteshvara is the bodhisattva of compassion. So this is how Shinran Shonin saw Prince Shotoku, or Avalokiteshvara, okay? And what's interesting about this is that, remember, in Shinran's history, he lost his mother at a very young age, which is actually why he became a Buddhist priest at the age of 9. Right? There's that famous story we talked about where he becomes ordained at the young age of 9 years old. Okay? And this is because, sadly, his mother passed away, and his father had already gone into the priesthood. But I feel like this is very important for us, because what he's also talking about in this wasan is the everlasting love and compassion that comes to us from Amida Buddha. Okay? And in fact, Kannon Bosatsu, or Avalokiteshvara, is sort of is a representation of the compassionate arm of Amida Buddha, always reaching us, always soothing us, always giving us that sense of comfort. And this, very much as Shinran sees it, is a representation of a mother's love. Once again, speaking to this, I could always count on my mother to give me advice when I sought it. I can always count on my mother to give her opinion and to also give me, instruction on how to, on basically how I was growing up. And, one of the things that my mother gave me as, I was growing up was experience. She was a lobbyist at the Capitol, and she brought me to the Capitol several times in my youth growing up. So thankfully, thanks to my mother, I got a good idea of how our government worked and everything, and how, I think by the end of elementary school, I knew what a California state representative was. I could say that word and everything, thanks to my mother. But again, right, one of the things that we talk about when we talk about, a mother's love, when we talk about it in Buddhism, right, is this everlasting love, care, and compassion that we receive on a day-to-day basis. So unfortunately, some of us present here today, our mothers are no longer with us, in person, that is. They have been born into the Pure Land. Yet, we still have fond memories and recall wonderful memories of our mother. And probably, we still do things the way that our mother did them, correct? And we still have these, we still have these beautiful memories. And this is more, I guess, in terms of my grandmother, because my grandmother is no longer with us. But my grandmother is the one who actually properly taught me how to oshoko, right? It wasn't the priest, actually. It was my grandmother who did it. And so, with this, right, we look at the effects that our mothers have had on us over the years. Yes, sometimes our relationships with our mothers can be complicated. We may not always get along. However, I do believe that even Shinran understood, even though his mother passed away from a very young age, that there is a love and compassion that comes to us on a day-to-day basis that never stops. Yes, our parents might get upset with us. Our parents might get annoyed with us. They may get angry. But ultimately, I believe that doesn't stop our parents from loving us. I believe that this is the kind of love that comes from Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. And I think it's important for us to listen to this wisdom and compassion that is given to us on a day-to-day basis. Avalokiteshvara, or Kannon Bosatsu, the bodhisattva of compassion, comes to us at those times, I sometimes think, when we are most feeling low. But at the same time, cherishes us and praises us when we are on the highs as well. This is a constant, I think, that we have with us in terms of being Buddhist. This is a message that we should never, ever forget. Now, speaking on Renyo Shonin, we chanted Shoshin Nembutsuge today because we are honoring the 8th head priest of our temple, Renyo Shonin. But he has an interesting story as well. And it actually has to do with his mother. Believe it or not, when we think about succession, right, like kings to princes, right, we think it's kind of a smooth transition, right? King Charles, I should say, right? King Charles, I'm sorry, King Charles, right? He became the king, right? And he actually got his coronation. And it was a fairly smooth transition, right? Queen Elizabeth II passed away. Naturally, Prince Charles was the next in line. Renyo, and for our Monshu, right, or for our head priest, it's sort of similar. The father passes it to the firstborn son. However, as always, in reality, it's never always been that smooth. Believe it or not, Renyo Shonin was not originally the next in line to be the head priest. In fact, he was kind of on the low end of the totem pole to be the head priest of Nishihonganji. He was not the first son of the Monshu previous to him. It was actually, in fact, when he became the head priest, there was kind of a succession battle that was happening at the time at Honzan. And it was thanks to his mother's real clever and shrewdness and political scheming and of course having the right, knowing the right people and basically convincing the right people that Renyo Shonin became our head priest. It was thanks to his mother that Renyo Shonin was the 8th Monshu. And that's not often talked about a lot. But I think this is very interesting. Again, we see the lengths that mothers will go to for their children. Just like the story of Moggallana for Obon, right? You all remember that story? There's a reason, sadly, why Moggallana's mother was in the realm of the hungry ghosts. It's because she did so much, sometimes almost selfishly, to make sure that her son had the best things or the best food or the best this or that. So naturally, Moggallana did all that he could to free his mother from that realm of the hungry ghosts. So again, we see this kind of love and caring and compassion that a mother has for their child. And this is the kind of love that Shinran constantly writes about when he writes about the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha. I can't think of a better time where we talk about this subject of constant caring, love, and compassion than on Mother's and Father's Day. This kind of theme, I think, is very close to home when we talk about the kind of love that we receive. I'm not a perfect son. I will say that right now, just for the record. I'm not a perfect son. I definitely do enjoy when I get on my mother's nerves sometimes. Just to give you an example, my mother is a very proud Cal graduate, right? Berkeley, California. And one time, I liked to call my mother when I went to a special lecture, a Buddhist lecture, by the way, at the Stanford campus. So I purposely called my mother and said, "Hey, Mom, I'm at your favorite place in the whole wide world." And she said, "Where's that?" And I said, I'm on Stanford. And she nearly hung up the phone on me. So, again, my mother has been through a lot, and of course, and you probably have guessed, I'm not the easy. I probably wasn't. I wasn't the easiest child growing up. If my mother were here, I would try to say, "Oh, Mom, wasn't I such a wonderful and an easy son to raise?" And my mom would say, "This is why I have gray hair, or this is why I have to dye my hair," right? I probably have given my mom more stress and anxiety than anything else. I'm very different than my brother, right? I was the wild child. I always wanted to go someplace. I always wanted to, I was restless. So my mom had one problem of, trying to get me to sit still, whereas my brother was the stoic child, the one who always wanted to stay put. She had to be the one to push him out of the house. So, again, right, this kind of knowledge, right, what to do depending on the son, right, what to do depending on the child. She had to be an expert on both ends of the spectrum. I don't think there are classes that are taught that, teach us these kinds of things, or, how to be, right? We can read books, we can probably get expert opinions on things, but it's a wonder how I became where I am today. And I wonder, it's like, how did she deal with it? It's because she is a wonderful mother. She never stopped loving me. She always cared for me. And I will always be grateful. And I think it's because of examples from the past and, a long tradition of loving and the importance of family within her family. But at the same time, I also believe that the message of constant love that is given to us by Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion also had a hand in this, the importance of the temple. These are aspects and parts of life that my mother exposed me to. So I would once again like to thank my mother for that opportunity and that experience. So I would like to thank you all once again for coming today. I'm going to try to keep my Dharma talk short because I'm certain that all of you are really itching to get out the doors to get to your Mother's Day plans right after service. So would you all please join me in Gassho. Great Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the world's savior, who appeared as Prince Shotoku, is like a father, never leaving us, and like a mother, always watching over us. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats.